Hello and welcome to episode 15 of Northpointe Plus. 15, anything significant about 15?
It's higher than 14.
That's true. That's enough for me. we'll move on from that.
We're not old enough to drive on this podcast yet.
No, there's going to be those weird ages where like nothing really important happens in your life. Like between the ages of 21 and 25.
Yeah.
Those are useless birthdays. Those are barely worth celebrating.
Anything after 30? Yeah.
40.
I just had a birthday. I had a birthday. I was tweeting all over the house. I had a birthday and turned 33, and my family loves me, but nobody else cares.
Yeah, nothing cool about that.
Yeah, there's nothing cool. Man.
That's
my daughter turned 3, and that was very cool. Everybody was highly excited.
Yeah.
We had Frozen stuff all over the place.
Yep.
I was Olaf.
Oh, Disney Frozen, not just like Frozen.
Yeah, not like Frozen. I know it's December.
Froze different items around your house.
Yes, we did. There's a giant bag of peas in the middle of the table, and we're like, happy birthday, and then she cried.
She loves that stuff.
Yeah, it was weird.
I don't know what we got there.
Yeah, we're totally off track.
Welcome to Northpointe Plus.
That's the worst start I think we have in the 15 podcasts.
That's okay. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. This is our follow-up podcast for our messages on Sunday mornings. This podcast gives us the opportunity to dive a little deeper, continue the conversation with y'all, answer questions, and goof off and talk about frozen peas, 33s, and whatever comes up.
Yeah.
I'm one of your hosts, Mark Adkins. To my left, Jake Howard. Jake, you continued our Christmas Uncluttered series.
We did.
Yesterday. We record this on Mondays. What'd you talk about?
Yeah, we talked about how perfection is just not possible. We talked about Christmas season, like there is this draw for perfection of your house looking nice or the perfect gift or family memories or all that stuff. And then we kind of related over a little bit to the story of Mary and Joseph and how the very first Christmas was far from their view of perfection and just kind of how pointless it is to really try and pursue perfection.
Yep.
To recognize we're all going to be broken, like things are just going to go hectic or haywire on us at times, whether it's at Christmas or whether it's in other aspects of our life. And we have the opportunity to still trust that God's moving.
Yeah.
So
great. Before we get into our questions, we have some logistical items to take care of. So we got a question about Christmas Eve. So I want to talk about Christmas Eve in a second, but the question specifically asks, will there be Christmas Eve services online as well? And so yes, there will be. They'll be tweaked and kind of catered to the online platform. So if you're basically, we're doing it for people that can't make it. So if you regularly attend Northpointe, but you're traveling to see family and friends, or if you're homebound, you're sick, whatever it might be, we're going to have a shorter service that'll premiere at those same times. So 3 o'clock, 4:30, and 6. But that'll be available online as well. So that'll go out during those times on Christmas Eve. But do you want to invite people and kind of explain Christmas Eve? Maybe no one's heard of Christmas Eve.
Oh, yeah.
It's their first time.
Well, it's the day before Christmas.
Is it?
It's right on the eve of Christmas.
Oh, that all makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's how that works.
I thought it was the evening of Christmas.
No, it's not. No, that would be confusing. I could see that. That would be, yeah, anyway. No, we don't need another rabbit trail here.
Nope,
right?
we've done enough.
It's too early for that. Yeah, so Christmas Eve, it is coming up on the 24th. We have services at 3 o'clock, 4:30, and 6. It'll be about an hour long. We're going to be worshiping together. We're going to be encouraged by Rick this Christmas Eve. I got some fun stuff planned. There's going to be kids care as well, so nursery and the real littles to be in there as well. We want kids to actually be in the auditorium.
Yep.
We got a fun little bingo game for them, so that'll be kind of cool to be a part of. But yeah, so that'll be this Christmas Eve. It's exciting. We encourage people to be there. Like you said, if you can't be in person for whatever reason, maybe you've traveled to be with family, maybe there's sickness, whatever it may be. It's cool that there is an online service, but it's catered that way. It's going to look and feel different than in person. So I'm excited about even checking that out afterwards.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be a blast.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had talked about in your message this idea that we have this. I want the camera on me, not you.
My bad. Sorry.
You had talked about this idea of a perfect Christmas, and that idea. We typically all know that the nativity that we have on our mantle or on our coffee table, wherever we put is not really totally accurate. Mm-hmm. But we still fall into that trap of thinking like, oh, it's this perfect, quiet, silent night, and it's this quiet Christmas. But you brought up too, I think there's other parts of our culture that really emphasize this idea that Christmas is supposed to be perfect, and you brought up the Christmas song. And so one of the questions was, if Rick was preaching this sermon, would Rick have sung the Christmas song? So are you a coward for not singing the Christmas song? You just read the lyrics?
Yes, and the answer to that for both is yes. Yes, I am. Can I tell a stupid story?
Please, only stupid stories.
Only stupid stories on the podcast. So I took choir in high school, my freshman year.
Okay.
Small Christian school I was a part of. We had 3 guys in our tenor section. One of the guys was deaf in his left ear. And so, like, none of us could sing. We were all really terrible singers. And so our choir teacher, we're getting ready for the Christmas whatever thing that we're singing. And she keeps having us sing the same song again and again and again. And something's just not right. It's just not right. So the 3 of us are goofballs and could have cared less, right? Like, no big deal. So we just sat down. We're like, I'm so tired of singing this song. Literally, the whole tenor section, the 3 of us, sat down and didn't participate. And she didn't pay much attention because she's playing piano. She gets done, and you see her slowly put the keys, like, covered, and she looks at us and goes, "Class, that is the greatest you have ever sang this song." And we were like, "Well, hold on, we didn't sing." And she goes, "Guys, just don't change anything for the pageant." And we're like, "Oh." So we then got the nickname Tone Deaf Tenors for the rest of choir. So the fact that I did not sing on Sunday, you're welcome. But I did pass choir with an A by just lip syncing my way from there on out. Yeah, we had an understanding there. But and then we couldn't sing, right, because of streaming and copyright issues and all that fun stuff. So we'd had to pay somebody a whole lot of money for my terrible rendition, and at no point would it have been worth it. So
for those that want a peek behind the curtain into service planning. So basically, because we live stream, there are so many more copyright considerations that come into play. So if we don't want to have our live stream muted or copyright striked or whatever it is, basically we stick to worship music and anything else, even like small snippets of it. Now, maybe Jake's rendition of it wouldn't have triggered the copyright police, but we didn't even want to risk it. So that's the story we're leading with.
They'd have watched it and said, "No, that guy's not singing the song. There's no way. I've heard that song."
Doesn't even do a blip on their copyright radar. Oh, man. So, yes, to answer the question, Rick probably would have sung it.
Yes.
We would have gotten copyright strikes.
Right.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on from that. Another kind of seemingly silly question, but we actually got a lot of in conversations with people, a lot of people were asking this question and someone submitted it, which is great. So we sang a song at the end of the message, and the title of that song is O Come, Emmanuel.
Yeah.
In the message, you read a passage that refers to it as Immanuel.
Yeah.
Is it Emmanuel or is it Immanuel? I want Northpointe to plant a flag in this fight. Are we team Emmanuel or Immanuel?
Yes, and we will plant it in the fact that the answer is yes. Yes, again. It really comes down, it's lettering, and in the old good rule of thumb, in the Old Testament, they use I with the Hebrew interpretation. New Testament's Greek, they use the E. It's the same word. It means God with us. Like when you break it all down, it's my favorite term and thing to talk about in Christmas because like that's what Christmas is all about, right? So nothing huge there. There are exceptions exist. So I know somebody's watching this and they're gonna like look in their Bible and be like, "Hold on a second."
They're already writing the comment.
There's an I in the New Testament, Jake. Why are you lying to me? There are exceptions. They are there. It's all about translation and transliteration and all of those kinds of things, but it means the same thing. It'd be the same as, your name is Mark, M-A-R-K. I worked for a guy in Cincinnati. His name was Mark, M-A-R-C. So obviously...
I already don't like that guy.
Yeah, obviously he's wrong.
Yes.
So that's really what it comes down to. It's just a slightly different spelling of the same word, language.
So even though it's not dramatic, we should make it as dramatic as possible and create a divide. I'm going to be team Emmanuel.
And everybody else has to sit over here. Some have to sit here, depending just the Christmas Eve services, the I section and the E section.
Hopefully that's on the bingo card. One of the other questions we got. So in your message, you talked about Mary being visited by the angel, that crazy experience, and then the process of her learning all of that, Joseph finding out, getting to the birth and all that. And you mentioned that Joseph found out probably 3 to 4 months later What's your reasoning behind that? Where does that reasoning come from?
Yeah, that's a solid question. That was like a passing comment too, and it got thrown in there. I saw that one come across.
I always find it fascinating, like the things that will just like stick in people's mind, which is great. That's why I love this podcast, because it gives us an opportunity to answer questions like that. But you never know, like what random side comment you might make where someone's gonna be like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah,
this is one of those.
So this is where we got it. Luke, I had to write my little notes here. I had to actually go back and look at this again this morning because I was like, wait, I did the research. I remember it. Where did I put that? So I found it again this morning. Luke 1:36 tells us that Elizabeth was in about her 6th month of pregnancy. The angel Gabriel told Mary, hey, go check out Elizabeth. She's pregnant when nobody said it would happen. So you can trust that God does amazing things. And so we know that she does. Mary travels. Verse 39, verse 36 says she's in her 6th month of pregnancy. Verse 39 says that Mary is in a hustle. She's trying to get there. She wants to see Elizabeth. From estimations on where they would live and the time to travel, they're thinking it would take about a week or so for Mary. So you're talking a week there, a week back. And then verse 56, Luke 1:56 says that Mary stayed there for 3 months. The assumption, the Bible doesn't specifically say it, but the assumption is she would have been there for John the Baptist's birth, which is really, really cool to think about. Like, you've got this young girl who is now pregnant, and she's going to check out her cousin and see what's going on. What's this like? Like, what's the future hold for me kind of thing. So I think that was probably a really valuable moment for Mary. Yeah. Like to have that time. Now, we'll do some cultural reading into here at times. So this could be true. This could not be true. I'm not trying to say it absolutely is. But there is a chance that traveling that week, Joseph would have gone with Mary and like traveled and dropped her off until make sure she was in care so that nothing could happen on the travels. Like that would make a lot of sense. Yep. More than likely, then he would come back home. He's trying to build a house and trying to get like a life for them together. So now he's take this week. He's traveled with her. He's come back. He's gone for 3 months. He takes another week to travel back. He goes up and, hey, there's John the Baptist. That's so cool. And then he would look at Mary and be like, hey,
something's different.
A little different here. All right. And then they would travel back home and probably have good conversation along the way. So you're looking at anywhere between 3 to 4 months, 3.5, 4 months, somewhere in there. Yep. I rounded up and said 4 months because traveling is traveling. And if you travel like me, it's going to take a lot more time. So, that's kind of where that number came up with. But there's a little bit of cool backstory if you kind of read into that, maybe with Joseph there. I like that. That makes it a little more intriguing.
I like that. Good question. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
This last question I think is great. I think there's a lot of people, a lot of us really, that wrestle with this question, especially during Christmas. But I mean, really, this is a philosophical question that has yet to be fully answered to anyone's satisfaction. Yeah. It's basically the problem of evil. So this question is, how do we push aside painful emotions and choose to trust God when we're still questioning why tragedy has been allowed to happen in our lives? And again, I think that's on people's minds a lot around Christmas, especially this Christmas. It seems like people are just tired and fatigued, and there's a lot of pain and loss and tragedy and hurt. And when you look at this amazing miracle of Christ being born and all the subsequent events and what that means for us, and you're singing joy to the world, and you don't feel that. Right. How do we wrestle with that? How do we work through that? How do we still choose to trust God in the midst of everything going on? Yeah, that's such a good question. I think the way this question was worded at first, when it says, how do you put aside the painful emotions? I think it's important to address. You don't have to put those aside. Yeah. Like that's not probably even the healthiest way to deal with it. Like, emotions are not bad things, right? I know for a while it seemed like in the church that we have said, if you feel big emotions, that's bad, right? If you feel anger, if you feel sadness, if you feel whatever. Right. And that's just not true, right? God has given us emotions for a reason. I think part of that is they reveal something inside of us, whether it's a sense of justice or love or care or whatever it may be. So it is okay to feel. It is okay to hurt. It is okay to question. In fact, I think it is important, especially if you've experienced loss, to do that. That is part of the grieving process. And if you've studied grief at all, a lot of different cultures have a lot of different ways of grieving, but going through grief is important. So, man, if you're in this position where you're just questioning and you felt lost this season, as a lot of us have, from sickness, from death, finances, jobs, like there's just, the world has just been thrown for a loop here for the past while. So
it's okay to grieve. It's okay to feel that. That's not something you have to push inside. And maybe you're stuck in that grief. Like that happens to a lot of people. So you're not alone in that. There are people that want to help you with that. You know, there's people you can talk to. We have Grief Share here at Northpointe. It's a phenomenal program to be able to walk through the steps of grief together, have somebody else who's gone through it, understands it, discuss that a little bit. So, man, I would encourage, if you're stuck in that phase, there are ways to continue to grieve in a healthy manner and come out on the other side healthier, which is a great thing to be a part of. Grief is all over the Bible too. David, like, oh my goodness, read the Psalms. The guy's grieving left and right. He grieves as he's running for his life. He grieves when his child loses their life, like all of this stuff. So it's a beautiful thing to recognize how human that is, and how human loss and pain is. Job is another one that is all about grief, and really bad people pouring into him in some of that grief, right? But he's a beautiful picture of being able to trust God in not understanding and not knowing and in grieving when there's loss there. So trusting does not mean that we are ignoring or that we're not or that we shouldn't have questions when pain comes in our life, when struggle comes in our life. I think it's recognizing and realizing, man, that it's hard, that it is confusing, and believing that God is good anyway. It comes rooted in the fact that if I truly think God is good, God is right, and his way is best, that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be pain involved. It doesn't mean that I'm going to understand or even like all of it. It's just me trusting that in the midst of the pain, in the midst of the grief, in the midst of the sorrow, recognizing that we live in a broken world. The design is not perfect anymore. It's broken. We can trust that God is still in control, even when I don't like it, even when I don't understand it, even when I don't want it.
Yeah, I think going along with your message talked about how culture, society, the world paints this picture of Christmas has to be perfect. And it also paints a picture of what grief looks like. And in Western society, grief is very brief. So you've had the funeral, you've cried your tears, move on. That's American grief in a nutshell. It takes about 2 weeks. That's the expectation for American grief. And then we don't talk about it. And it's this weird thing because like you almost feel like if you're the one grieving, I almost feel weird bringing it up to check on you because it's like, well, like, gosh, I don't even know where Jake's at wrestling with that. So 6 months later, do I want to bring up all of those emotions? And usually for people that are grieving, the answer is yes. I would rather explore that, talk through that, process that, than feel like I need to bottle everything up and just push aside painful emotions and make the choice to trust God and joy to the world and all that. And so that's where I think we make the intentional choice of, okay, I can either follow how culture is telling me to grieve or how God tells me to grieve. And I think even looking at the example of Jesus, like Jesus with his friend Lazarus, gets to Lazarus' grave and knows the outcome. Like Jesus knows he's minutes away from saying, Lazarus, get out of the grave, dummy. Come, Lazarus. He knows the outcome. And Jesus still weeps, like uncontrollably cries and sobs and weeps. Because that hurts. There's pain involved in that. He sees the pain in his friends. He feels that pain himself. And so, it's making that choice of trusting God, knowing that he's good, and choosing to grieve as God grieves, not as America tells us to grieve, or the world tells us to grieve, or whatever Instagram influencer we're following, whatever it might be. And that doesn't mean it's easy in that process, because grief is going to look different and feel different. And you might wake up one day totally fine, no painful emotions, and by lunch it's like, I don't even want to get through the rest of the day because there's too much here.
I saw an analogy on Facebook. So it's true because it was on Facebook. But I thought it was a really good analogy, and it talked about you have a grief or a pain button in there. And have you seen this with the giant ball? So there's a giant ball of your grief that's just trapped in a box with your pain button. And at first that ball is massive, and so it's constantly pushing on that pain button, and you feel it every single day, multiple times throughout the day. But what happens is as time passes, that grief ball gets smaller. It's still going to hit the button from time to time, but it's going to miss the button a whole lot more than it's going to begin to hit it over the next few weeks, months, years, and those kinds of things. And I think that that's just a reality. There's still times, we've all experienced loss, that we grieve that or we hurt that and we feel that, but having those times where man, I can actually celebrate a little bit more as time has passed and the memories that we have. And there's a beautiful thing in that. And I think that's the way God designed and orchestrated it to be.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good reminder for all of us as we enter into the Christmas season, as we work through the Christmas season, that there are people that it feels like Christmas almost like takes that ball and like gives it like a homing target for the pain button.
Really?
It's like every day, because what's Christmas about? It's about gathering your whole family together. Well, what if you've lost some of your family? What if you wanted to have a family and you can't gather because you lost a child, or you just so for all of us, having that reminder of like, it's okay to reach out to anyone in your life.
Yeah.
Say like, hey, I'm here if you want to talk, process, you can come over, we can grab dinner, coffee, whatever. But to be the body of Christ for one another, to come around one another. The cool thing about being in Christ in the church is that I don't have to grieve alone.
Right.
So whatever I'm going through, I'm not forced and told by God to like deal with this yourself.
Right.
Don't be a burden to anyone else. Right. To be the church, to bear one another's burdens, like what a cool opportunity.
Absolutely.
To share Christmas in that way.
Absolutely, man.
Cool. Well, that's all the questions we got. So unless there's other tidbits you want to share about being 33 or
no,
peas
not
or
at all. No,
whatever else it may be.
Is not exciting at all. 3 years old is pretty exciting. 33 is not. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for submitting questions. Be sure to come to our Christmas Eve service if you're watching this before Friday. Gosh, I have to like.
You almost said Thursday.
I almost
there,
said Thursday. We were just talking before about like I keep thinking Christmas Eve is on Thursday, and I don't know why.
Yeah,
but it's Friday.
I'm gonna laugh when you're here at like 6 o'clock on Thursday. But yeah,
really
Friday.
Disappointed. Oh man! So be sure to come to Christmas Eve services on Friday, 3 o'clock, 4:30, and 6 o'clock. We would love to see you there. It'll be a blast. It's a great way to celebrate and kind of round out our Christmas celebration that we've been doing all month long. So
love it.
With that, we'll see you next week.